Hey, Micah, here we are again.
Yeah, here we are. No, it's another week gone by.
Like they say, wherever you are, that's where you are.
Yeah, well, no, it's wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, like like the cartoon I saw, the guy was on a. I'm dating myself with this cartoon because there aren't any such thing as payphones anymore. but but it
Yeah.
had a payphone booth that had it says telephone on up on the top, telephone on all of the sides. And so somebody asked, "Where are you?" And so he looks out and he says, "Oh, I'm at the corner of telephone and telephone."
Yeah.
So maybe that's where we are tonight: telephone and telephone, or computer
Uh,
and computer.
yeah, yeah,
Which is
it's
kind of what I was thinking of this topic tonight, and that is technology, where we're at right now with technology. So,
yeah.
um,
Techno
go ahead.
Technology has become a scary thing, I'd say. There's a lot of directions we can go with technology, I think.
Well, so I was thinking about this, and when in the Bible, when you go back to the Tower of Babel, it says, I should probably look it up. Trying to remember what chapter that is.
It's like Genesis, like I don't know, 20 maybe.
I think I can do a search on it and get
I,
it.
I I've just about finished reading Genesis. I think I read about the Tower of Babel last week.
Yeah.
So, but
Genesis 10:10, and through 11:9. Let's see, take a look at that. 10:10.
what is it?
And then 11. Okay, so yeah, it starts out, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, "Go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar. And they said, "Go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto the heavens, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." And the Lord Yahweh came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men were building. And he said, "Behold, the people are one." That's one of the conditions. "And they have all one language." That's another condition they have. "And this they began to do." So they've decided on what they're going to do. So they're in unity about what they're setting about to do. "And because of those three conditions, now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Go to, let," and this is really interesting, "let us go down." So there's a plurality going on here, which has confused a lot of people. "And confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." So he scattered them thence from on the face of the earth, and therefore it's called Babel. So that's kind of where I was going with this, was that there was this ability out of those three conditions to do anything they decided to do.
But don't you find it also interesting that not very and Noah was still alive during this time,
Yeah.
and and it's very interesting that this massive flood has just happened, and people have already forgotten God.
Yep. Well, it seems to
You
be
know,
a repeat throughout history, isn't it?
well, yeah. And I mean, I think in the past, we've talked about it. It really, so much of that comes down to, you know, um, our lack of teaching the next generation. I mean,
Right.
you know, what 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 Abraham, one of the things that I, really, stood out to me about Abraham was that he taught his descendants, after. But, you know, it's just these people would have been descendants from, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, Noah's son. And, you know, and yet here they are, you know, like Noah's still alive. His
Right.
sons are still alive. And here's these people, these descendants, these direct people who are descendants of Noah, who was there and saw what God did by flooding the earth. And yet they're sitting there going, let's build a tower.
Yeah.
Let's you know, let's
Well, then
that boggles my mind. Like I can't understand how quickly people revert, back to that darkness and that black, that evil way.
well, and what you're saying, something to add to it, to makes it even more profound, I think, is there were no other people on the face. Everybody else had been killed in the flood. So whoever was alive and building this tower was fairly closely related to Noah. Not just an acquaintance, but a relative.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
I mean, Noah lived over 900 years.
right,
So,
exactly. And he
so,
lived
so,
long enough. He lived long enough to have actually had about a 20-year lap with Abraham. So Abraham actually could have had his conversation with Noah, which is a really interesting idea.
wouldn't have actually considered, I wouldn't have considered that side of things. I was only thinking about, the, after the flood. But yeah, you're right. Before the flood, I mean, wow, that's a profound thought.
So Abraham was able to talk with Noah about what was in place before the flood and how much had changed after the flood. That must have been an amazing set of conversations, I would think.
Yeah, yeah, man. Like, I mean, yeah, I didn't mean to rabbit trail there, but I
No, I think it's
constantly find
cool.
it amazing. I constantly find it amazing how quickly,
Yeah.
you know, we forget, we walk away, and it just,
Yeah.
but yet at the same point in time, even in, in my own kid's life, I recognize how much I have to, battle for their attention to get them to focus on spiritual things.
Well, and we
So
know even of Noah's sons, Ham apparently by the scriptural account went pretty haywire pretty fast too. So, and there was even some curses involved with his progeny. So apparently that was part of what was going wrong with the whole thing.
yeah, it's just amazing. It's like I said, here you see these people. I mean, we can go a little bit further into, the first 5 books of the Bible, and we talk about, and I've mentioned this before about, you know, here the people of Israel, they saw the Red Sea parted, they
Right.
saw the Egyptians, drowned. They saw the hand of God. They saw the fire on the mountain, the cloud of smoke on the mountain. Like, like they lived through and they saw these things, and yet when the first chance they had, they made a golden calf and bowed down and worshiped it rather than the mount, God, who was surrounded the mountain in smoke and fire and thunder and
Yep.
flame and all this other stuff.
Yep.
It's like there's God right there, and
Well,
yet we're still going to have Aaron build this this golden calf because we'd rather worship it than this amazing God that is sitting there right in front of us. It just
yeah. Well, and here's another really crazy thing that happened just maybe about a year later or so, fairly close proximity. you have Korah challenging Moses. He said, I'm a Levite. I'm from the tribe of Levi too. Who died and made you the king, and we, I'm just as good as you. I can bring incense into the tabernacle as good as you can. And Abe, Moses said, well, go get your fire pan, bring it in the morning. And apparently there was 250 brought their fire pans, and they were all killed. And the earth opened up and swallowed Korah and his family. And you would think that after seeing that happen, there would be no more question about that. But the problem is, the very next day, they came and challenged Moses again. And what was it? Was it 12,000 or 24,000 or?
It was, I don't remember.
14,000. Yeah, 14,000 were burned. And Aaron had to take a censer and start going among the crowd to stop the plague of the people being killed. The very next day. I mean, come on, people. What does it take?
Yeah. That's exactly right. And I think, that is, that's the question. What does it take?
Yeah.
When are we going to wake up? When are we going to pay attention to what God? Because we are coming into a time in history now where God's judgment will come.
Yeah.
I
hold it off so long.
Exactly right. Like, it's been foretold for thousands of years.
Well,
that his judgment is coming.
Yeah, that's kind of why I went to the Tower of Babel, because I know God works in patterns, and he also does what's called this chiastic structure, where what you see on one side gets repeated on the other side, and it makes this symmetrical pattern. Okay, and I kind of look at like maybe possibly call it like bookends, with history in the middle. But there's this event that started it, and then there's this event that finishes it. The event that finishes it is going to be very similar to the one that started it. And so that's why I went to the Tower of Babel, because I'm thinking, they had one language, they were all together, they were in unity, and they had made up their mind what they're going to do. And I look around today and I go like, well, because we have over 2,000 languages on the face of the earth, different tribes and dialects and things. But for the first time since the Tower of Babel, I can take my computer or my smartphone that has more computing power than the first computer that put a man on the moon. I could take that smartphone and I can speak something into it. And when it speaks on the other end to somebody I know in China, they will hear what I said in Chinese, and then they'll answer what I said in Chinese, and I'll hear it in English. We now have the ability to do that. So we're back to one language again.
Well, I mean, think about it. On social media, there's if somebody puts a post in a foreign to me language, all I have to do is press the translate button.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I do that all the time. I get these messages on my YouTubes from all these different countries, and they're in their language, and I have to put it on translate, but then I understand what they said. So it's amazing.
It is, and that's never. You could, I mean, exactly what you're saying. We could sit here and say that, that's never happened since the Tower of Babel.
Not that I'm aware of. So,
which kind of in a way makes you wonder. Well, it makes you wonder about the origins of technology. But there's a topic for another time.
Oh yeah, like the yeah.
I mean, you could rabbit hole in all kinds of directions on that one.
Yeah, we'll not for tonight anyway. But taking that, another step, and once again, I'm not going to get political or attack certain situations that are going on around us. But it's very interesting that in a very short period of time, because of the technology, we have most of the countries in the world pretty much going off the same page, going the same direction. And I'm not going to comment on whether I think the direction is proper or not, but that's what's happening. There's this unity going on that the technology has made possible.
Yeah, but it's I think the unity is on one side. You know,
yeah.
look, I understand what you're saying, but it's, you have these powers, that be that, that control most of the government systems in the world for some reason, which I still can't figure out how that happened. But and then obviously you have other, the other side of the coin where people are saying no, this is something that we don't want. So I mean, it's not a complete unity in the direction that we're going.
Right.
But but like you're saying, from a technological unity, where you can go and scientists can collaborate from different countries now, and you can have governments that speak different languages collaborate, and all this different type of stuff. You don't really need the use of translators anymore. You have technology. And
yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that, once again, saying it very carefully, those who are interested, well, there's a recent poll that was done, and I'm just going to put it in, just call it Christian versus the world. But it used to be that over 80%, 20, 30 years ago, over 80% of people in the United States, anyway, I'm just talking from the United States, at least believed in God and believed in following a code of ethics that is outlined in the Bible. Well, that percentage has dropped significantly in the last 20 to 30 years. And so we now have a lot of pressure from a lot of directions coming pretty much against those who believe in living a moral life, a Christian life. Let's just say, put a broad label on it. That seems to be becoming more and more out of style. It seems to be becoming more and more in style to be atheistic, to be at least hedonistic, at least, just live for yourself, live for your whatever, but not living with the consciousness of God being intimately involved in your life. That seems to be really being under attack. And part of the attack is just out of carelessness, but other part of the attack is out of powers that be, that really cannot function if people hold a moral value. And so they have to erase those lines, as it were. And once again, I'm being very general, but I think you know what I'm saying. So once again, there's kind of this chiastic structure. There's this, what was at the beginning is now being seen at the end. And that Noah was righteous in his generation, but it wasn't long before unrighteousness came into vogue to the point of building that tower. So now we had basically a moral-based society, but now that's disappearing, and we now are coming back to the same conditions that we see at the Tower of Babel when that dispersion took place. So I'm just, I'm not trying to make a doctrine out of this, but I'm just noting the structure, the pattern that's a lot of what I look at is patterns, because when you look at patterns, you see things that you don't normally see, and it helps you. It helps to outline things that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. And so, anyway, I don't know if I'm making sense, but
Well, yeah, of course. I think it's interesting because when you look at where we're sitting in the grand scheme of things, and I think just by the very nature, you know, after the flood, God he gave his sign, of the rainbow, that that he would never again, destroy the world by flood. But the Bible also says, as in the days of Noah, so shall it be. So we look at it, and I think to your point of bookends, saying, that was the beginning,
right,
are we at the end? Well, God's already promised, and when God makes a promise, he doesn't deviate from it. He's not like a man who makes a
right,
promise and lies.
right, yeah,
He's God. He makes a promise and he sticks to it regardless. And when you said, I'll never destroy the world by flood again, well, what other options does he have? Because the world had come to such a place where it was so evil and it was so bad that he had to destroy it by flood. Where else are we in the bookends of history?
right.
What other option is there?
Well, and I think Yeshua said, didn't he use at one point? He said by fire.
Well, I mean, Revelation,
For
yeah,
sure,
there's definitely that. I mean,
yeah,
there's all kinds of instances of fire, but we're getting to this point, and then we start talking about artificial intelligence, and we start talking about transhumanism, and we start talking about all these other different aspects of things that are not conspiracy theory.
right,
These things are wide open out there, for anybody that wants to take a look, who wants to invest a little bit of time, literally a 5-minute Google search, you can go find all of this type of stuff, right? These are not things that are being hidden anymore.
right. Yeah,
They're throwing they are as bold as they can get. They're throwing their agenda out there in front of everybody to see.
right. Yeah,
You know,
yep,
and where we're going, with this, is is it's not a, like, it's a terrifying thing if you're not in God. If you don't believe in God, if you don't have a relationship with
right.
God, then it
Yep,
is a very terrifying time to be alive, because we see all of this uncertainty. And quite honestly, I think that a lot of people don't want to face these things because they don't want to face reality.
right,
You know, they don't want to see because the minute they face reality, the minute they pull their head out of their sand, out of the sand, and open up their eyes, they have to face reality. But as long as their head is stuck below the sand, they don't have to. They can just sit there and, with their eyes closed and their fingers in their ears, sitting there going, blah, 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 blah. I can't hear you. Right.
yeah,
But the second your eyes are open, that's a scary place, you know? And that's why, again, I think it's important for us, to continue to put these things out there. It's important for people to continue to, put their messages out there, and and talk to, and not be afraid to talk to people about, about your neighbors, about who God is.
right.
Not be ashamed to walk a believer's life.
And the one of the things that brought me to the thoughts we were sharing about the bookends. Mom and I were talking the other day, a couple of days ago, and we were remembering the book we had read called The Fourth Turning, by Howell, and I can't forget the other guy's name. Which? Strauss, yeah. And what they had done was, from a totally secular, historic look at what they called seculums, that about every 80 to 100 years, there were four turnings, and at the fourth turning was the upheaval and the problems and the trouble and the wars and all the things that kind of came to a crescendo. And then after that, things got rebuilt and you came back to the golden age again, and everything was cool and everything was good. And so many people, and you hear this term quite a bit in different people talking, is they're going like, we're at a fourth turning, and I believe we are. And the timing, we are in the middle of that fourth turning right now, even by the book, the way they laid out the timing, we're right there. So my question was, I asked myself this thing, is this the final fourth turning? Or is this fourth turning going to bring us back to another golden age? And in talking about the technology and the bookends and the Tower of Babel and all that, I believe that kind of puts a weight towards this being the final fourth turning, because up until now, historically, we haven't had all of these other things in place. But this fourth turning, we have all of this technology in place. And it's being honed very well and used very effectively. And it causes me to think that this is very possibly the final fourth turning. Just my thoughts, but
I totally agree. And I think another thing, if we look at, and I think, sometimes we can, and I know I do, and I'm only speaking for myself, is that, we can put too much emphasis on, on the bad, on the evil that's out there.
Right.
But I think on the other side of things is that another, for me, I think one of the biggest things for me personally that I look at the times that we live in now as being significant is the fact that of what God is saying to me. And he's not just saying it to me, he's saying it to so many other people around the world.
Absolutely.
And it's the same message. It's get your house in order.
Yep.
It's holiness, righteousness, it's clean hands and a clean heart. It's putting aside putting aside your past, putting aside the pains in your past and the hurts in your past and all of these things. And this has just been such a constant message, and I see it. I see it when I read people's comments, read what people are saying, talk to other people, who are Christians and who are believers, and this message is consistent. And the Bible says so many times. I say this every time we do one of these podcasts. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. And there are people out there, there are real believers out there that are hearing, and are acting on these things. And, every day I'm trying to act on those things. I'm trying to act, trying to get before, my Father, our Father, as much as we can, so that he can make, he can bring that holiness and that righteousness, and he can heal us from those hurts, and he can take away those things in our lives, that aren't of him, that we can have clean hands and a pure heart before him. And
continue to build the relationship.
Yeah, exactly right. Because what we're going to be, everything, and that is the sum of all of it, is that everything comes back to relationship. But where we are going to be asked to be moving, in the near future, moving moving in his power, because he says, he will pour out his power in the last days. And for me, just to finish real quick, I just want to say that that for me personally, like, don't be bothered. Don't be so concerned about the dry times. Don't be concerned about the times when you can't hear God, when you feel like God is far away. I can promise you he's not.
Yes, that's right.
He's right there next to you, and he's encouraging you and pushing you on. And the dry times are those times where perseverance, where that continuing, you know, um, just faith pushing forward. It's not a matter of what we feel or what we see. It's a matter of what we know. So continue to push, to push and push forward, because those are the boundaries that we need to knock past, so
Right,
that God can move in our life.
right.
And that is, and again, that's a message that I hear so much, not just in my own life, but in so many other people's lives, you know, that I talk to, or that I, hear, you read their comments, or you read, social media, whatever it is, you hear this same message happening. And, and I think the thing that really needs to be said is, don't be discouraged,
Yeah,
allow those, those dry times, those desert periods, to refine you and to make you into the person that you need to be.
right. And that's a lot of that. In fact, we were having a conversation this morning with the people that live on our property with us, that as we see Babylon, it's interesting because they have the Tower of Babel at the beginning, and we now have Babylon. All of the prophecies that refer to Babylon at the end, and it all represents confusion. But as we see these things taking place, it's interesting. And I even heard somebody talking about this from the secular side, and I thought, wow, you're not far from the kingdom. But we have the opportunity right now, because we see Babylon is fallen, to begin to find ways and sources and resources that are not entangled with Babylon, that our Heavenly Father has provided for us, and to begin to make the separation.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a real theme that in people that I talk with a lot around, even at fellowship and stuff. And that is, they're making big choices to change. Some of them are even leaving their jobs and starting up businesses or ways of earning incomes that are not dependent on whether they perform a certain level or whatever. They see it coming and they're preempting before it hits. They're buying places that have some acreage so they can grow their garden, grow their food. They're moving out of high population areas into more rural areas. There's a lot of people are really, their eyes are being opened, and they're making choices that are very significant, that are going to really change the way that they're going to live. And it's interesting to see that, because to me it's saying that they're the Holy Spirit is on the land. This Holy Spirit is pouring out on these people and leading them into guiding them, and they're obeying, and they're seeing it. They're seeing what's happening, and they're making appropriate decisions on the basis of that. And that's really encouraging. And I encourage those who are listening to pay attention to what the Father, what the Holy Spirit's saying, because I think we are in this time of big change, because no longer can we depend on Babylon. No longer can we depend on the system. It's showing itself to be very fragile, and those who are understanding, not, not to depend on. They're going to be in a whole different place. They're a whole different set of circumstances when things really, when the hits the fan.
Well, I think we can really, and I think, and that's so important, and that's something that, I know you've been doing, I've been doing, and I know so many other people are doing the exact same things. And even from a secular perspective, people that don't know God are doing the same because they're hearing the same things.
Yeah,
You know, um, they're reading the signs of the times,
right.
and what at one point in time, you would have called these people doomsday preppers. Nowadays, I think you just call them smart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Um, and I think if there's one thing also, that we can really learn from Noah, and I think which is particularly applicable today, is that don't worry. Don't worry about what other people say. If they say, don't
right.
don't worry about the naysayers and the detractors, because you will have them. you know I mean, when I buy emergency food, or I buy supplies, or stuff that I know it's just going to sit there. I have no intention of using it right now, but it's all about me. For me, it's all about making sure I follow the Boy Scout motto, which is always prepared.
Right.
And you know and Noah building that big old ark, I'm pretty sure he had some major detractors. He would have
Yeah,
had a lot of people mocking what he was doing.
you're doing
But
what?
guess what? Guess what? He did it anyways.
And he was
He
ready.
ignored that. He ignored them, and he listened to God. And I believe that God is saying the same things nowadays. He's saying, "Get your house in order."
Yeah,
He's saying, just like the parable of the 10 virgins, make sure you have oil. Make sure, you're able to, when the bridegroom comes, that you're able to trim your lamps and to continue to have light and go in to the party with him,
right.
you know. And that's, don't worry about what your neighbor says. Don't worry about, and to be honest with you, I'll try and keep it as quiet as I can, you know. Um, because I don't want a bunch of my neighbors coming by, when I only have enough for
Yeah.
me and my family.
Well,
um,
and we're learning through the process of what's happening around us right now, more than ever, who we can trust and who we don't trust.
yeah, and I'll be honest with you, there's not very many people I trust. I mean, to be
Yeah,
honest with you, I don't even trust my family here.
and that's
You
and
know?
that's the Father has been, I think, is being kind to us to help show the division that we didn't
Yeah,
understand before. He's saying,
yeah,
I want you, you need to know this, because there's coming a time when that's going to make the difference about how you go and what you do.
yeah. I completely agree with that. Completely believe in that, and that's what I say. It's when the detractors come, if they do, when the people, the naysayers, all this type of stuff, the mockers, all that type of stuff, you know what? Just ignore them.
Yeah,
And it's just like it's just like I do. And the reason that I continue to do what I do is because I know that there will come a point in time where people are going to be like, "Wow, I'm really glad you didn't listen to me."
yeah. Well, and here, it kind of comes down to this, I think, and this might be a good place to end up on.
Yep.
Yeshua said, um, broad is the gate that leads to destruction, and narrow is the gate, and few there be that find it. And you even think of, I forget which one of the big rich guys back in the 1900s said that his investment strategy was to look what everybody else was doing and then do 180 degrees from that. Because
Yeah.
most of the people were going the wrong direction. And that's pretty much true no matter what endeavor you're talking about. Most people, and even today as we see it right now, are making bad decisions, and they're doing it because they want to be part of what everybody else is doing. And
Yeah.
God has asked us all the way from the beginning to not look around and see what everybody else is doing, but to be a peculiar people, to be different, to be. He said, "Be holy because I'm holy." What is holy? What does he mean when he says that? The word is kadosh in Hebrew. It means set apart. So if you're set
Yeah.
apart, you can't be part of the crowd. And that's been the way it's been from day one. And Adam and Eve had gotten in trouble because I don't know who they were. Well, they were following the devil, but there wasn't a big crowd to follow at that point. But at the same time, they were not listening, going God's way. They went the other way, and it's been ever since. There's God's way, and then there's all the other ways, and
Yeah.
that's really what it comes down to. As simple as that, really.
It, it it really is. It is really very simple. It's God's way or it's man's way. And yeah, I agree with you. And hopefully there's other people that are listening and can hear what we're trying to say.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
and I think at the end of the day, this is, it's not a message, we never bring a message based out of fear ever. You know, it's it's simply it's simply bringing a message out of love and love for our neighbors, you know, and really trying to follow what the Bible said. And and for me, the reason that I do this, my motivation behind this is what Yeshua said, the second commandment, love your neighbor. And and that's because if we have a perspective, or if we have a word, or if we have a message that's on our heart and we refuse to give it, then then God's not in that.
Right.
We have to speak the message that he gives us, and edify people, and not make people afraid, but make people aware, and hopefully bring a perspective that people haven't been thinking about.
Yeah.
you know
That's what we're trying to do here. Yeah.
and that's and at the end of the day, that's I'm no Bible scholar. I don't pretend to be. I'm just a guy with an opinion, and you know I'm trying to do the best I can, like everybody else. And you know um if I can help somebody else, then maybe that person can help me, at
Yeah.
some point in time in my life as well. Because that's what the body of believers should be about. We should be about helping each other. We should be about edifying
Absolutely.
each other. We should be about encouraging each other, bringing each other up. You know, if we all were to give people a hand up, you know, um, who knows where we could go?
Yeah, boy, it'd be a different place, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, we're too busy looking for the hand up ourselves, rather than you know understanding that it's a community aspect, and we all achieve together.
Yeah, living stones, like Peter said. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's all I have to say. So
All right. Well, that'll wrap it up for this episode, and
yeah, we'll catch you next week.
you betcha. All righty. Well, it's good talk.